CEO falls in love and gets waitress pregnant at a diner and discovers a secret that will change everything, including his company and relationship with his wife. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. Adam tapped the steering wheel with restless fingers, staring at the wipers flailing across the windshield. The rain came down in sheets, a near-constant roar that flooded the highway in reflective pools. He was already late getting home. Not that home felt much like one these days. His wife had wanted him at some flashy fundraiser, and he knew she'd unleash more complaints about his absence later. The truth was, he felt suffocated by the expectations and appearances that shaped every aspect of his life. Tonight, he needed a break from all of it. Rivulets of water streamed down the side windows, making the road ahead blur into a hazy darkness. He almost missed the faded billboard that advertised a small diner a mile off the interstate. On impulse, he took the exit, deciding that a cup of coffee and a quiet corner might grant him the pause he desperately craved. The sign outside read Doris's Diner, flickering with a neon glow that fought hard against the deluge. The parking lot was nearly empty except for a couple of battered trucks and a lone sedan. Adam pulled into a spot close to the entrance and cut the engine. He watched the diner's lights for a moment, thinking how warm they looked compared to the cold droplets hammering his windows. Inside, the place was old-fashioned in a comforting way. The booths were upholstered in red vinyl, and the walls were lined with framed photographs of local events and smiling faces from another time. A soft bell tinkled as he pushed the door open, bringing in a swirl of chilly air. A waitress standing by the counter turned at the sound, wiping her hands on a small towel. She had tired eyes and a hint of worry creasing her forehead, but she smiled anyway. "Welcome," she said, her voice gentle. "Coffee, please," Adam murmured, removing his wet overcoat and shaking off a few drops. He glanced around, noticing the mismatched chairs, the hum of the overhead lights, and the sweet smell of something fried in the air. The place was nearly empty at this hour. The waitress directed him to a booth near the window. "I'll bring it right out," she said softly, catching his eye with a hint of curiosity. Adam slipped into the booth, exhaling as if he'd been holding his breath all day. At his office, everything was harsh fluorescent lighting and sharp angles, no warmth or comfort. In his large house, the silence was even colder. Here, though, there was something undeniably inviting about the soft hum of the ancient jukebox and the comforting swirl of steam from behind the counter. Moments later, the waitress returned with a steaming mug and placed it before him. "Let me know if you need a refill," she said. Her name tag read Luna. He offered a polite smile. "Thanks. Luna, is it?" She nodded, allowing a flicker of relief to cross her features, as if she was glad to be acknowledged. "Long night?" she asked, noticing his loosened tie and the weariness in his posture. "Yeah," Adam replied, taking a sip. The coffee was strong and hot, a direct contrast to the persistent chill of the night. He glanced at her again, catching the fatigue in her expression. "You look like you could use a break, too." Her lips curved up slightly. "I'm hanging in there. Rainy nights are slow, but I don't mind. Gives me time to think." A brief ring broke the moment. Adam's phone. He pulled it out, seeing an incoming call from his assistant. Reluctantly, he answered, hearing a reminder about tomorrow's early board meeting. Corporate deadlines and demands hovered over him like a permanent shadow. Mumbling a quick reply, he ended the call and tucked the phone away. When he looked up, Luna was still standing there, an empathetic look in her eyes. He wondered how a stranger could exude more warmth in a few minutes than he felt at home in years. "I'll let you drink your coffee," she said softly, turning back to the counter. He observed her moving about the diner, wiping tables, restocking sugar dispensers. She moved with the subdued grace of someone used to carrying a burden yet determined not to let it break her. The occasional flicker of the overhead lights highlighted the weariness in her face. It was obvious she was doing her best to get by. A few minutes later, another man, likely a truck driver, leaned over the counter, demanding more coffee in a brash tone. Luna handled it with calm politeness. Watching her, Adam felt a pang of sympathy. She reminded him of someone forced to manage more than her fair share. The wallet in his pocket felt heavier than usual, and he thought of the large salary that felt meaningless when he was drowning in a life that made him miserable. Thunder rattled the diner's windows, and the neon sign outside buzzed. Adam sipped more coffee, each sip grounding him, as though bridging his high-powered world with this simpler, honest space. After a few minutes of internal debate, he stood and walked over to the counter. "Could I get a slice of pie?" he asked, scanning the dessert display. Luna opened the glass case. "We have apple or cherry left." "Apple sounds good." She lifted a slice onto a plate and placed it in front of him. "It's better warm. Want me to heat it up?" "Yes, please." They exchanged a small, fleeting smile. Something about her sincerity made him feel a jolt of unfamiliar comfort. He realized how rarely he'd encountered genuine kindness lately. A loud voice at the far end of the diner broke the moment. A man with a gravelly tone was complaining that his order was taking too long. Luna rushed over, apologizing and trying to diffuse his anger. Adam watched, concerned, until the man finally quieted down. There was a strange impulse in him to intervene. He didn't like the way the stranger's aggression was directed at her, but he hesitated, unsure if stepping in would help or create a bigger scene. When Luna returned, she placed the warm pie before Adam, her face slightly flushed from the confrontation. "Sorry about that," she said quietly, smoothing her apron. "He's had a rough night, I guess." Adam's throat felt tight. "Thank you," he murmured, more gently than he intended. She offered a modest nod, then left him to his pie. Alone again, Adam stared down at his plate. The aroma of cinnamon reminded him of simpler times, like childhood moments in a small kitchen, free from complicated obligations. He realized that for the first time in quite a while, he was thinking about something other than business acquisitions or boardroom presentations. After finishing the pie, he signaled Luna for the check. While she printed it, he slipped out his wallet, deciding then and there to leave her a tip that might help with whatever burdens she was carrying. He'd heard her mention medical bills to a coworker in passing, the faint lines of worry crossing her forehead whenever the subject arose. She returned with the check, hesitating before placing it gently in front of him. "Thank you for stopping by," she said in a soft tone as though she truly meant it. Adam slid enough bills inside to cover the meal plus a generous tip. "I hope you get home safe. It's a nasty storm out there," he said. "Likewise," Luna replied with a grateful look. He picked up his coat, heading for the door, and paused. He glanced back one last time. Their eyes met in a moment of unspoken understanding. Then he pushed into the rain, pulling the coat over his head as thunder rumbled in the distance. The wind whipped around him, fierce and unrelenting, as he climbed back into his car. He couldn't ignore the sudden sense of longing that welled up. Longing for honesty, for warmth, for real connection. The storm outside echoed the storm within him. He drove off, the diner's lights receding into the rearview mirror. His mind was already turning over the next day's obligations, an early meeting, a charity function his wife expected him to attend, and a never-ending avalanche of decisions to be made on behalf of the family company. Yet strangely, all he could focus on was the memory of Luna's gentle eyes. Inside the diner, Luna cleared the table where he'd sat. She froze when she spotted something on the counter. It was a sleek business card, and on it, an unmistakable corporate logo. Her lips parted slightly as she recognized the name. She'd seen it in news segments, read about it in headlines. It belonged to a major corporation she'd heard of, one with deep ties in powerful circles. Outside, the rain drummed on the roof, lightning illuminating the empty parking lot. Luna tucked the card into her apron pocket before turning off the main lights. She flipped the sign on the door to closed, heart pounding as questions about this mysterious man began swirling in her mind. As Luna locks the door, she notices Adam's forgotten business card on the counter, revealing he's connected to a major corporation she's heard of. She looks up into the storm with questions swirling in her mind. Luna stood by the small kitchen table in her grandmother's modest apartment, staring at the business card she'd found at the diner the night before. A sense of disbelief warred with curiosity. She'd seen the corporate logo in newspapers and on TV, stories about big acquisitions, boardroom drama, and a CEO with a prestigious last name. She traced the embossed letters, remembering the man who left it behind. He'd seemed so weary yet genuine in those few moments they'd spoken. Part of her wanted to toss the card into the trash to avoid getting entangled in anything complicated, yet she couldn't deny the faint spark of interest that lingered since their conversation. Her grandmother's cough broke the silence, drawing Luna into the cramped bedroom. "Good morning, sweetie," her grandmother said, her voice weak but laced with warmth. She was seated on the edge of the bed, gingerly folding some laundry. Luna set the card aside and knelt by her grandmother's side, gently placing a hand on her arm. "How are you feeling?" "Don't worry about me," the older woman replied with a faint smile. "I've been through worse colds than this, but if you don't mind, I think I'll need more of those pills soon." Luna's gaze shifted to the half-empty prescription bottle on the nightstand. The cost of those pills was astronomical, and there were more doctor's appointments looming. She felt a heaviness in her chest, a reminder that every small expense was an uphill battle. Yet she forced a reassuring grin. "I'll take care of it. You just rest. I'm heading to the diner in a bit, but I'll come straight home after my shift." As her grandmother nodded, Luna stood and grabbed her coat. On her way out, she paused to look at the business card one last time. It bore the name of a man she barely knew, yet for some reason, it seemed important. She slipped it into her pocket instead of throwing it away. Outside, the morning sky was still gray from the remnants of last night's storm. Puddles dotted the sidewalk, and a chill wind blew through the nearly empty streets. Luna walked briskly, the card pressing against her thigh with each step, as though reminding her of an alternate path she'd never considered. Meanwhile, in the towering downtown office building where Adam worked, polished floors reflected bright lights as people hurried through the lobby. Adam strode toward the elevator with shoulders tense and jaw set. The board meeting he was dreading would start soon, and he knew the rumors were already circulating. Something about him acting distant, missing a fundraiser, or escaping responsibilities. He pressed the elevator button and waited, fighting the lingering memory of the small diner that had felt far more comforting than this cavern of glass and steel. Upon entering the conference room, he was greeted by a round table of stern faces. His assistant discreetly handed him a stack of documents outlining quarterly goals and media monitoring reports. Adam took a seat, scanning the suits in front of him. Most seemed concerned only with the bottom line and protecting the company's carefully engineered reputation. A senior board member cleared his throat. "We've heard some chatter about your schedule last night. Everything all right on your end?" Adam forced a neutral expression. "I'm fine. I just needed to clear my head before today." There was a faint tension in the air, as if everyone sensed an unspoken drama unfolding. Another board member leaned forward, adjusting his spectacles. "We have several high-profile clients arriving next week. We trust there won't be any distractions that could impact the company's image?" Adam nodded coolly, though inside he bristled at how any hint of personal life was treated as a potential scandal. "My focus remains on the corporation. I'll handle whatever arises." Despite giving them all the right words, Adam felt uneasy. He hated that so many eyes were on him, dissecting his every move. When the meeting adjourned, he lingered behind, glancing out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the cityscape below. His phone buzzed, another reminder about philanthropic commitments he was supposed to attend alongside his wife. But the memory of that fleeting moment of authenticity at the diner tugged at his thoughts. At lunchtime, back at Doris's diner, Luna was refilling salt shakers when she felt the telltale ache in her feet. She'd worked several days straight without a real day off. The diner was unusually quiet for midday, though a few regulars sat scattered around, chatting over cups of coffee and plates of fries. She took a quick break in the back, inhaling the aroma of grease and bacon. The business card weighed heavily in her pocket, prompting her to slip it out and study the embossed name again. She wondered why someone like Adam, clearly a powerful individual, looked so lost. His eyes had held a sorrow she understood all too well, the sort that comes from carrying an unseen burden. Later in the afternoon, Luna headed home to check on her grandmother, then returned to the diner for the evening shift. Around sunset, the clouds thinned, revealing streaks of pink and orange across the sky. She wiped down the chrome stools at the counter, humming a quiet tune. The bell above the door chimed, and she turned with a ready smile, expecting a local face. Instead, she found herself looking into the same pair of tired eyes from the night before. Adam closed a sleek umbrella and shook off a few droplets before stepping inside. He glanced around, relieved to see the same warm interior. His gaze settled on Luna. "Back for more coffee?" she asked, her tone light but with a trace of surprise. He brushed a hand over the collar of his coat. "I guess I couldn't stay away," he admitted quietly, taking a seat at the counter. "Long day. Meetings. I needed a place that felt normal." Luna poured him a fresh cup, noticing the tightness in his face. "Rough one, huh?" He took a sip, nodding slightly. "Yeah, you could say that." She stayed near, wiping a few specks of coffee off the counter. "Everything okay at your job?" He looked up, saw the sincerity in her eyes, and found himself opening up more than he usually would. "It's a high-pressure environment. Expectations everywhere. Sometimes I'm not even sure why I keep at it." "That sounds tough," Luna replied, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Must be a lot of responsibility on your shoulders." He tilted his head, caught off guard by how understanding she sounded. "It's a family business," he said after a pause, "and I'm kind of expected to run it smoothly. No room for anything less than perfection." Luna gave a thoughtful nod. She recognized the weight of responsibility in her own life, though on a much smaller scale, and empathized with the pressure of needing to hold everything together. "Well, at least you can relax for a bit here," she said, offering a small but genuine smile. Adam returned it, grateful for her easy warmth. The conversation drifted to lighter topics, the changing seasons, the best slice of pie at the diner. Luna couldn't help noticing how he seemed to loosen up with each minute spent away from the corporate world. Once or twice she thought about mentioning his business card, but nerves held her back. Late in the evening, after a lull in customers, Luna finally brought up the subject. "I realized you left something behind yesterday." She quietly slid the card across the counter. It had your name on it. Adam looked down, lips parted in mild surprise. I didn't notice. Guess I was too preoccupied." She caught herself starting to ask about his position or his company, but decided against it. Instead, she said, "I made sure it stayed safe." "Thank you," he replied softly, taking it from her. "That was kind of you." Luna glanced at the clock, noticing that closing time wasn't far off. She could sense his reluctance to return to whatever demanded him outside these walls. He seemed momentarily content here, in this quiet, humble place, with the smell of fresh coffee and the promise of a short reprieve. "I'll probably head out soon," Adam said, downing the last of his cup. "I appreciate the conversation. And the coffee." She refilled his cup a final time, then moved on to ring up another patron. A co-worker teased her gently under her breath, commenting on how her face lit up whenever Adam came around. Luna blushed, stammering a quick denial, but part of her recognized an unfamiliar flutter in her stomach whenever she spoke to him. When Adam finally stepped toward the door, she followed him to hand back his change. He took it with a nod. They stood by the entrance for a second, neither speaking. The overhead light buzzed faintly, and the last of the day's color had faded from the sky. "Thanks again," he said at last, his gaze lingering on her. I might stop by again soon if that's okay. Luna tried to keep her smile modest. Sure, I'll be here. He offered a small wave and pushed open the door, letting in a cool rush of night air. Her heart felt unexpectedly light, as if for a moment she was part of something bigger than her daily struggles. She turned to wipe the counter, still replaying their conversation in her mind. The soft ring of the bell signaled his exit. She watched him disappear into the darkness, a faint glow from a street lamp catching the side of his face. Then a sudden flash of headlights made her wince. A sleek black sedan pulled up just beyond the diner's windows. The passenger door opened and a woman stepped out, her posture rigid, scanning the interior as if searching for someone. Even from a distance, Luna recognized a certain tension in the set of the woman's shoulders. She looked like someone with a purpose, someone who might be following Adam. As Adam exits, a black sedan pulls up. His wife steps out, scanning the diner's interior with suspicious eyes, clearly having followed him there. Adam paused just beyond the diner's doorway, droplets of rain still clinging to his jacket. The black sedan idled nearby, its engine softly humming. A woman stepped out, his wife, her eyes darting around with a tension that crackled in the air. She looked from the glowing diner sign to Adam's face, lips tightening in restrained anger. Clearly, she had followed him here. He forced a calming breath and stepped closer to avoid attracting attention from curious onlookers. "What are you doing here?" he asked quietly. She crossed her arms, chin lifted. "I might ask you the same thing. It's late, Adam. Why are you wasting time in some no-name diner?" His heartbeat pounded in his ears, but he kept his voice steady. "I needed space. It was a long day at work." Her gaze swept past him to the diner's windows. Through the glass, Luna was clearing plates and restocking sugar dispensers, blissfully unaware of the confrontation unfolding outside. The wife's eyebrows arched in suspicion. "Who is she?" Adam set his jaw. "No one. Just the waitress who works here." He knew how that sounded, defensive, vague, but he didn't want to drag Luna into their marital problems. "Look, it's been stressful at the office. I stopped in for coffee, that's all." She stared at him, eyes flickering with doubt, then exhaled sharply. "Get in the car," she said, jerking her head in the sedan's direction. "We need to discuss this at home, where people aren't staring." Adam glanced back at the diner window one last time. He could see Luna lifting a tray, eyes cast down, likely unaware anything was amiss. Reluctantly, he slid into the passenger seat while his wife shut her door with a decisive thud. The driver eased away from the curb, merging onto rain-slicked streets in tense silence. She eventually broke it, her voice low and scathing. "You do realize that if the press got wind of you sneaking around, it would tarnish everything we've built? You can't just wander off to random places anymore." He wanted to snap back that their marriage was built more on convenience than real unity, but he held his tongue. "I'm not sneaking around," he managed instead. "I just needed a moment to think." Her mouth tightened. "Think about what? That board meeting you almost slept through? The charity event you skipped?" She shook her head, frustration radiating from every syllable. "Stop embarrassing me, Adam." He didn't respond, just stared out the window as the city lights blurred by. When they reached their gated home, he stepped out without a word. Inside, the house felt cold and cavernous, the polished floors reflecting the subdued light of a single lamp she'd left on. He thought of the diner's warm hum and how different it felt compared to this silent, pristine emptiness. The next morning, Adam arrived at the office for a round of executive meetings. There was an undercurrent of speculation among the directors. Glances darted in his direction when they thought he wasn't looking, and hushed conversations died whenever he passed. He'd felt singled out before, but this was worse, like everyone was whispering about a developing scandal. Deep down, he suspected certain individuals were eager to undermine him. It was just how this world worked: sense any weakness and pounce. By lunchtime, he realized how relentless the rumors had become. As he walked to his office, he overheard two junior managers discussing the mystery woman he'd been seen with. He turned a corner and spotted his assistant texting rapidly, then looking up with a startled expression. Adam's temper flared, though he kept it hidden behind a mask of composure. If they only knew how innocent the diner visit had been. Meanwhile, at Doris's diner, Luna was trying to stay focused. She kept replaying the image of that sleek black sedan and the woman who'd stepped out, her eyes locked on Adam. It didn't take much to guess the tension between them. Still, Luna had bills to pay and a grandmother to care for, so she forced herself to concentrate on her customers, wiping tables and refilling coffee cups with a polite smile. A little after noon, her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. She took one look at the caller ID and her stomach dropped. It was the home nurse who sometimes checked on her grandmother. Quickly, she ducked into a quieter corner of the diner to answer. The nurse's voice was urgent. "I'm sorry to bother you, but your grandmother's fever seems to have gotten worse. She's complaining of chills and her medication isn't bringing it down." A knot of fear gripped Luna's chest. "I'll be there as soon as I can," she promised. After a hurried word to her manager, she flew out the door, barely stopping to pull on her coat. Her heart pounded with a mix of worry and guilt, wishing she could be in two places at once. When she arrived at the small apartment, she found her grandmother propped up in bed, looking paler than usual. Piled on a bedside table were envelopes with medical statements and a half-finished cup of tea that had gone cold. Luna gently placed a hand against her grandmother's forehead, feeling the heat radiate. "Let's get you more comfortable," she murmured, helping her sip some water. Her grandmother offered a weak smile. "I've seen better days, dear. Let's hope this passes soon." Despite her attempt at cheer, Luna could see real worry in the older woman's eyes. Across town, Adam was holed up in a drab boardroom with his best friend and a few executives, poring over agenda notes for a major corporate event. Everyone insisted he needed to attend to keep up appearances. With the swirling rumors and his wife's wrath, the idea of stepping into a spotlight felt suffocating. "I'm not going," he finally muttered, tossing the papers onto the polished tabletop. One of the executives leaned back in his chair, eyebrows raised. "Are you sure? It's the biggest networking opportunity of the quarter." Adam glanced at his friend, who silently pleaded with him to reconsider. "I just need to step away from all this," Adam said, fighting the tension building behind his eyes. He ended the discussion and left the office. On impulse, he recalled the address from the diner receipt Luna had given him by chance. He'd spotted the line for home deliveries on the slip of paper. He didn't even fully understand why he felt compelled to check on her. Maybe he remembered the worry in her face when she mentioned her grandmother. Maybe it was the fact that Luna had shown him more genuine kindness than he'd felt in a long time. In a matter of minutes, he found himself outside a modest apartment building with chipped paint and a broken porch light. He walked up the creaking steps and paused in the hallway, hearing muffled sounds from inside. He knocked lightly, then waited. Luna opened the door, eyes wide, cheeks flushed. She seemed stunned to see him standing there. Before she could speak, a small bout of coughing came from the other room. "What are you doing here?" she asked, glancing from him to the dim interior of the apartment. He gave a small shrug, noticing a bouquet of assorted groceries in his arms, the best he could gather on short notice. "I wanted to check on your grandmother. I overheard you talking about her health last night, and I picked up a few things that might help." She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Come in." The living area was cramped, with worn-out furniture and a neat stack of bills in plain view. Adam recognized the burden that must weigh on her, trying to balance healthcare costs and daily expenses. Her grandmother, propped up on a pile of pillows, greeted Adam with a thin smile. "Are you the fellow she mentioned, the one with the kind eyes?" Heat rose to Luna's cheeks, and Adam managed a small laugh, unsure how to respond. He extended the bag of groceries. "It's not much, but I hope it helps." The older woman's gratitude was immediate. "You're too kind, dear," she said softly, accepting the items as if they were priceless treasures. Luna hovered nearby, equal parts appreciative and uneasy. She didn't want to appear like she was fishing for charity. "Thank you, but I can manage. I don't want to drag anyone else into our problems." Adam set the groceries on the small kitchen counter. "I understand," he said gently, noticing the protective pride in her tone. "I just wanted to help in any way I could." While they spoke in hushed voices, Luna's neighbor peeked out from behind a half-open door across the hall, curiosity written all over her face. This was the kind of neighborhood where small events became big gossip. Luna saw the inquisitive stare and closed the apartment door quietly, hoping to keep rumors at bay. Adam's eyes drifted to a dusty trunk in the corner of the living room. It looked like it hadn't been opened in years. A faded label with a partial name was visible, reminding him faintly of something he'd seen before, but he couldn't place it. He wondered if there was a deeper story hidden in its worn edges, maybe about Luna's mother or her family history. He didn't ask about it, sensing that would be too personal. Instead, he turned his attention back to Luna's grandmother, offering a polite goodbye. "I hope you feel better soon," he said with sincerity. "If you need anything, please call." Luna followed him to the door, where they stood quietly for a moment. The air felt charged with a mix of gratitude and unspoken emotion. Neither of them was quite ready to name what was unfolding between them, but it was there, an undeniable closeness forged by genuine care and a desire to protect one another from life's storms. "Thank you," she said softly, resting her hand on the doorknob. "I really mean it." He nodded. "Take care of yourself, too." They shared a small, tender smile before he turned to go. He made his way down the creaking steps, stepping out onto the sidewalk with a swirl of conflicting thoughts, relief that he'd been able to help, concern about the repercussions if word got out, and a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, he'd found something worth pursuing beyond the hollow demands of his corporate life. Just as he reached the curb, his phone rang, the screen lighting up with his wife's name. He answered with trepidation. Her voice crackled through the line with barely contained fury. "We need to talk, now!" Adam felt his pulse quicken as he ended the call with his wife. Her clipped tone had stung more deeply than usual, sending a jolt of cold reality through him. He stood on the sidewalk a moment longer, trying to push away the image of her tense expression, that look she got whenever she was about to deliver an ultimatum. Around him, the city lights gleamed in the damp evening air. Across the street, a row of cars sped by, and he could almost hear the hiss of tires on wet pavement. He exhaled slowly, hailing a passing cab and sliding into the back seat. During the silent ride home, he steeled himself for the confrontation to come. If their last conversation was any indication, his wife was in no mood for compromise. Sure enough, he found her pacing in the living room of their sprawling house, polished floors reflecting her restless footsteps. Without bothering to exchange pleasantries, she turned to him, arms crossed tightly over her chest. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to our reputation?" she demanded. His shoulders tensed. "I'm only trying to live my life without every move being scrutinized." She scoffed, the sound echoing in the large space. "You think it's just your life you're risking? I've heard whispers from the board. Everyone's talking about your late nights, your disappearing acts, and don't pretend I don't know you've been sneaking off to see that waitress." Adam's jaw tightened. "Sneaking off? She's a friend, that's all." Her eyes narrowed. "I don't care if she's royalty. The minute you stir up gossip, you threaten everything I've worked to uphold. You have an obligation to keep this marriage intact in the public eye, whether you like it or not, and if you won't play by the rules, I'll make sure you regret it." He could feel anger flare in his chest. "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise," she hissed. "Go to your board meetings, say the right things, show up for events, and keep out of scandal. Or I'll make sure everyone knows about your little friend. Then see how quickly they strip you of your position." Before he could respond, she swept out of the room, leaving him standing there, adrenaline roaring in his veins. After a restless night on the couch, he woke, feeling hollow. The only thing he was sure about was that he had to see Luna again, even if it meant juggling the demands of a corporation poised to judge his every move. At the office the next morning, he was met with a flurry of urgent memos and stern inquiries. Someone had leaked gossip about his so-called secret rendezvous, and the board members were in a frenzy. He arrived at a hastily arranged meeting where a few directors, all in crisp suits, peered at him with barely concealed impatience. One cleared his throat. "We're hearing rumors, Adam. It's imperative there be no scandal surrounding the company's figurehead." Adam sank into a seat at the long table. "I understand your concerns, but my personal life shouldn't be the company's business." Another director, older and grim-faced, pressed his fingertips together. "Your personal life becomes our business if it threatens stockholder confidence. You've seen the backlash from even minor gossip." Adam clenched his fists beneath the table, keeping his voice level. "I'll handle it. There's nothing to worry about." Their stony faces suggested they weren't convinced. The meeting dragged on, focusing heavily on how he might rehabilitate his image. By the time it ended, Adam felt a headache throbbing behind his eyes. In defiance of everything, he slipped out during his lunch break and drove straight to Doris's diner. Maybe the coffee would calm his nerves. Maybe it was Luna's presence he actually needed. When he got there, the place was surprisingly busy, people escaping the rain and seeking warm meals. He spotted Luna behind the counter, hair pulled back, hustling between tables. When she noticed him, her eyes flickered in recognition, and she nodded in greeting, though she couldn't pause for more than a moment. Adam took a seat near the end of the counter, letting the cozy clamor of the diner wash over him. For a second, he allowed himself to relax. A few minutes later, Luna set a mug of fresh coffee in front of him. "Hey," she said quietly, as if sensing something was off. "Everything okay?" He forced a half smile. "Just the usual chaos. Work. Life." She didn't press, but he saw empathy in her expression. Before she could say more, a ruckus from the far side of the diner drew their attention. A broad-shouldered man was complaining loudly that his food was taking too long. His voice boomed over the general chatter, drawing annoyed glances from other customers. Luna excused herself and hurried over to try to smooth things over. Adam watched, unsettled by the man's aggressive posture, the way he jabbed a finger at Luna. "It's been 15 minutes, the man bellowed, slamming his fist on the table. "Are y'all even cooking anything back there or what?" Luna kept her tone calm. "I'm sorry for the wait. We're short-staffed today, but I promise the food's almost ready." He leaned forward, voice dripping with sarcasm. "A diner that can't serve breakfast on time, real impressive." Her cheeks flushed, though she struggled to maintain composure. "I'll check on your order right now." As she turned, the man muttered something crude under his breath, and something in Adam snapped. He stood up, walked across the diner, and positioned himself beside Luna, his hand lightly brushing her arm as if to lend her strength. "Is there a problem?" Adam asked, voice low but firm. The man sized him up, scowling. "Who are you supposed to be?" Adam squared his shoulders. "A customer who doesn't like seeing a waitress harassed. If you have an issue with your order, there's a polite way to handle it." The man snorted. "You got some nerve, buddy." Sensing the tension, a few other patrons looked on, bracing for trouble. The man stood, towering over Luna and Adam. His aggressive stance suggested he might not hesitate to start a brawl. Luna placed a hand on Adam's arm. "It's okay," she whispered, though she looked shaken. Adam didn't back down. "Let's just calm down, all right?" For a moment, it looked like the man would take a swing, but an older gentleman at a nearby table coughed loudly, drawing his attention. More eyes fell on him, and he seemed to realize this fight wouldn't end favorably. With a grunt, he tossed a few crumpled bills onto the table. "Keep your lousy food," he spat, then stomped out, letting the door slam behind him. The whole diner seemed to hold its breath for a moment. Luna exhaled shakily, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Thank you," she murmured, looking at Adam with genuine gratitude. I don't know what would have happened if that went any further." His pulse was still racing, but he tried to smile reassuringly. "You didn't deserve to be treated like that." A small ripple of relief spread through the diner, and soon the chatter picked up again, as if everyone silently agreed to move on. Luna guided Adam to a quiet corner in the back, away from curious eyes. "I'm sorry you had to step in," she said softly, fiddling with the corner of her apron. "But thank you for doing it." "I'm just glad you're okay," Adam replied. He caught a glimpse of how tense she was, shoulders drawn up with stress. Impulsively, he reached out to give her hand a gentle squeeze. "You handle so much on your own." She looked down at their hands, the corners of her lips trembling into a smile. The moment felt strangely intimate, a private bubble in the midst of the bustling diner. Eventually, she pulled away, saying she had to get back to work. Before leaving, she shot him a grateful look that seemed to speak volumes. He lingered in the diner a bit longer, finishing his coffee in a calmer atmosphere now that the troublemaker was gone. When he finally got up to go, he found Luna at the door, wanting to walk him out. "You sure you're okay?" he asked, searching her face. "I am, thanks to you," she said quietly. Then, with a hesitation that made his heart skip, she leaned up and gave him a brief hug. "Take care, Adam." His chest tightened at the warmth of that gesture. He nodded, stepping outside into the drizzle. For once he felt like he'd done something good, something real, instead of just living by someone else's script. Luna watched him disappear beyond the flickering diner sign. The heavy clouds overhead mirrored the uncertainty that tugged at her. The afternoon rush was picking up, so she slipped back inside. The clamor of clinking dishes and murmured conversations washed over her, and she tried to focus on the tasks at hand. Later, as the last customers trickled out and the neon lights buzzed against the darkening sky, she locked the door behind Adam's departing figure. Turning back into the empty diner, she began wiping the counters and stacking menus. That was when she noticed something odd beneath a napkin holder near the register, a small envelope, half hidden. Curious, she picked it up and discovered a partial note inside, scrawled with references to Adam's last name. Her heartbeat kicked up. It was a piece of information suggesting there was so much more to his background than she'd realized. As Luna closes the door behind Adam, she notices a hidden envelope near the counter with a partial note referencing Adam's last name, suggesting there's more to his identity than she realized. Luna woke to the hum of her grandmother's radio, the melodies floating gently through the small apartment. She stretched her arms, recalling how the previous evening had ended. Her discovery of a curious envelope referencing Adam's last name. Even though she had already guessed he was a man of influence, seeing something in writing, something suggesting a deeper link, unsettled her. She hadn't told her grandmother yet, not wanting to cause more worry. There was already enough weight on their shoulders. After making sure her grandmother had her morning medication, Luna slipped out the door, determined to visit the local library on her way to work. She gripped the mysterious envelope in her bag, her thoughts spinning. She knew her mother had died when she was young, leaving little behind except a few photographs and scattered papers. If this note somehow connected her mother to Adam's prominent family, it could mean a buried piece of her own past. The library was nearly empty, its high windows letting in a pale morning light. Rows of shelves stood like silent witnesses to countless stories. Luna found the public computers and began searching local newspaper archives, typing in variations of her mother's name combined with the corporate name she'd seen on Adam's business card. For a long time, nothing stood out. Just endless articles about the corporation's expansions and philanthropic endeavors. Then, buried in a decades-old newspaper, she spotted a small announcement mentioning a partnership between a local business owner, someone with her mother's last name, and Adam's family firm. Reading the snippet made Luna's heart pound. It didn't specify many details, but it was enough to confirm that her mother, or perhaps an older relative, had once been connected to Adam's powerful circle. She stared at the screen, mind whirling with questions. Why had no one ever mentioned this? If there was some kind of unpaid debt or broken promise, it might explain the persistent financial struggles her family faced all these years. Eventually, Luna gathered her belongings and headed to Doris's diner, still processing the strange discovery. The lunch crowd had begun to trickle in, so she set aside her personal worries to focus on orders and refills. Despite her best efforts, her hands trembled slightly, and her co-workers noticed her distraction. One of them, a friendly older cook, asked if she was okay. She forced a reassuring smile, deciding to keep the new information to herself for now. Meanwhile, not far away, Adam's wife was sitting in her own car, a sleek rental parked discreetly behind the diner's delivery entrance. She was on the phone with a private investigator, her voice clipped and cold. "I want to know everything about this waitress," she said. "Where she goes, who she sees, any connection to Adam's business dealings. Understand?" After a pause, she added, "And don't let either of them catch on." Her eyes glinted with satisfaction as she ended the call. If Adam insisted on pushing boundaries, she would push back, ensuring she stayed one step ahead. Though she tried to keep this operation hidden from Adam, part of her hoped the threat of exposure would be enough to scare him away from any further entanglements. Back in the diner, Luna felt a tingle at the back of her neck as she worked. She found herself glancing at the windows, a vague sense of being watched prickling under her skin. The thought of the black sedan outside late at night lingered in her memory. Maybe it was nothing, just a fleeting wariness from all the stress in her life. But she couldn't shake the feeling entirely. Adam showed up a little past noon, slipping in through the glass door with a tightness in his expression that suggested he'd had another difficult morning at the office. When Luna greeted him, her voice was quieter than usual. He frowned slightly, sensing her unease. They settled into a small booth at the back, the vinyl seat creaking under Adam as he shrugged off his jacket. "You don't look like yourself today," he observed, keeping his tone gentle. She folded her arms over her apron, eyes darting around. "A lot on my mind," she admitted. "I found something that might connect my mother's past with your family's company." Adam blinked, clearly taken aback. "What do you mean?" Luna hesitated, then pulled out the envelope she'd discovered. She laid it on the table, explaining how she'd seen Adam's last name and then gone to the library to look up old records. "It's not solid proof, just an old newspaper mention and some hints. But there was a contract or a partnership of some kind. I don't know what became of it." He picked up the envelope, scanning the partial note with a furrowed brow. It referenced a file number, a date, and a last name that matched Luna's. "I vaguely recall my father mentioning a dispute from years ago," he said slowly, "but I was too young to understand." A busboy approached to refill their water glasses, forcing them to pause the conversation. Once he left, Luna lowered her voice. "There might have been an unpaid debt or settlement that never came through. My mother died too early to tell me herself. If it's true, it could explain a lot about why we've struggled all this time." Adam nodded thoughtfully, slipping the envelope into his pocket. "I'll try to talk to some of my relatives, see if they remember anything." A flicker of relief crossed her face. "Thank you," she whispered. Despite everything, she was glad not to be facing these mysteries alone. Unbeknownst to them, a nondescript man in a booth by the window watched their exchange. He pretended to scan a menu, though his gaze flickered toward the couple far too often. His phone rested just out of sight, camera angled discreetly in their direction. Across the street, Adam's wife had agents quietly gathering information, fueling her simmering anger. After they finished lunch, Adam insisted on driving Luna back to her grandmother's place on his way to yet another tense meeting. She agreed, but only if he wouldn't linger. The last thing she wanted was for her neighbors to label her as the subject of scandal. In the car, they talked about small things: the weather, a local festival happening in a few weeks, anything to lighten the mood. But just beneath the surface lay an undercurrent of anxiety. When they pulled up at the old apartment building, Adam parked in a side street, away from prying eyes. He turned off the engine and faced Luna. "If you need help, money or anything else, please let me know," he said quietly. Her cheeks warmed. "I appreciate that, but I can manage. I just want to figure out the truth about this partnership. If someone's owed something, it shouldn't be buried." He nodded, a spark of determination in his gaze. "I'll see what I can uncover." They stepped out of the car, exchanging a quick, awkward goodbye. Even though they had grown closer, each still felt the barriers imposed by Adam's marriage, by the corporate pressures closing in, and by the unspoken tension of crossing lines neither had meant to cross. Luna waved softly as Adam pulled away. She made her way inside to check on her grandmother. The older woman was in her armchair, crocheting something with trembling hands. Immediately she asked how Luna was holding up, sensing the turmoil. Luna tried to reassure her, mentioning only that she was researching a potential link to her mother's past. Her grandmother's eyes seemed to flicker with old memories, but she didn't say much, only offered a weary sigh. Later that evening, once Luna finished her second shift at the diner, Adam surprised her by calling. He'd done a preliminary ask around the office. Nothing official, just quiet inquiries about old files and deals from the company's early years. "Nobody's saying much," he told her, "but I'm not giving up." Their conversation was short, overshadowed by the knowledge that they were treading on dangerous ground. Adam's wife, the press, the board, so many forces wanted them apart. Even so, they clung to each word, that slight sense of hope that maybe the truth could set things right. They said goodbye, each hanging on the sound of the other's voice a second too long before the line went dead. Luna locked up the diner, stepping onto the deserted sidewalk, her breath forming faint clouds in the cool night air. Street lamps buzzed overhead, casting a dim glow on the puddles from an earlier drizzle. She glanced around, exhaling a bit shakily. The day had been intense, filled with revelations and uneasy promises. As she began walking, she heard an engine's rumble and turned to see headlights approaching. For an instant, she thought it was Adam again, maybe coming back to offer comfort. But then her heart lurched. The black sedan crept toward her, the same menacing vehicle she'd seen before. It halted a short distance away, engine still running. She froze as the rear window rolled down, revealing a familiar face. Adam's wife. The woman's expression was set in a mask of grim determination, her eyes dark with resolve. In that moment, Luna felt the weight of the world tilt, the undercurrents of secrecy and danger rising to the surface. In the darkness, the same black sedan reappears. A window rolls down, revealing Adam's wife watching them together, her expression resolute and cold. A cold wind rustled through the nearly deserted street as Luna stood on the curb outside the diner. The black sedan remained parked just a few steps away, its engine idling in low, rumbling pulses. Inside, the silhouette of Adam's wife was unmistakable. The window remained half open, and the pale glow from a nearby street lamp revealed the hardness in her gaze. Luna hesitated, heart pounding. She took a tentative step backward, unsure whether to approach or bolt for the safety of the diner. Before she could decide, the sedan door opened and Adam's wife stepped out. Her heels clicked against the wet pavement, echoing in the quiet of the night. "I was hoping to catch you alone," she said, voice poised and sharp. She wore a tailored coat that accentuated her confident posture, and her eyes flicked over Luna with cool calculation. "Since my husband insists on playing games, I figured you and I should speak directly." Luna exhaled, trying to keep her composure. "What do you want from me?" "Oh, I don't know," the woman answered, a slight sneer curling her lips. "Perhaps an explanation, or better yet, a promise to stay far away." A distant horn blared, and a car sped by, splashing water onto the curb. Neither woman flinched. Luna took another breath, meeting the wife's gaze as steadily as she could. I'm not trying to cause trouble. Adam's the one who came to my diner and we ended up talking. That's all." "Right," the wife said with a brittle laugh. "Just coffee and conversation with a billionaire CEO. Don't be naive." She shifted her stance, eyes narrowing. "I know what you're really after. Your mother's so-called claim against the company, some old contract you think entitles you to a payout." Luna stiffened. She could almost feel her pulse in her ears. "I don't want money I'm not owed. I just need to understand what happened." And Adam offered to help. "Adam has enough responsibilities without cleaning up someone else's tragic little backstory," the wife snapped, crossing her arms. "We have an image to protect. He's obligated to uphold certain standards. He's married to me, and I won't let you or anyone else ruin us." For a moment, Luna felt a surge of anger at the insinuation that her entire life was nothing but a sob story. "With all due respect," she said in a trembling voice, "it's not your decision whether I look into my own family history, and Adam's old enough to choose what he wants to do." The wife's lip curled. "You'd be shocked at how quickly that attitude will change once you realize there's no future for you here. Stay away from him and from the corporation's affairs. If you don't, I'll make sure you regret it." She glanced toward the sedan, where the driver watched impassively. "This is your only warning." Without another word, she turned, slipped back into the car, and slammed the door. The sedan roared away, leaving Luna rattled on the sidewalk, her breath coming in shallow bursts. She hugged herself against the cold, replaying the confrontation in her mind. The threat clung to her like a stubborn shadow. Part of her wanted to tell Adam everything, but the other part feared what more trouble that might bring. She forced herself inside, flipping the diner's sign to closed. The hum of the overhead lights felt louder than usual as she cleaned tables and collected stray napkins. She replayed the nasty tone in the wife's voice, the surety in her threats. It left a bitter taste. Luna finished her tasks quickly and returned home, her shoes squeaking across the wet pavement. She arrived to find her grandmother already asleep, the lamp by the couch left on for her. She set her keys on the small kitchen table, catching sight of a pile of unopened mail. Bill after bill, medical statements, insurance disclaimers, always more than she could handle. She felt a wave of dizziness, pressing a hand to her forehead. Her body had felt off for a couple of days, fatigue that wouldn't subside, slight nausea in the mornings. She chalked it up to stress, but the symptoms were too persistent to ignore. That night, she tossed and turned, grappling with half-sleep that offered no rest. Her mind dredged up nightmares of corporate lawyers and shadowy figures knocking at the door. She woke before dawn in a cold sweat, determined to do something proactive. She had to rule out or confirm what had been nagging at her mind. By early morning, she was at a local clinic, waiting anxiously for a quick test. The sterile white walls and the faint smell of antiseptic only heightened her nerves. After a short wait that felt like hours, a nurse emerged holding a slip of paper, guiding her into a private area. The news was clear. Luna was pregnant. She stared at the nurse, her heart hammering. "Are you sure?" she managed. The nurse gave a sympathetic nod. "Yes. Judging by what you've told me, it's still early, but there's no doubt." A storm of emotions collided inside her. She felt an odd blend of surprise, fear, and a tiny spark of hope. She walked out into the morning light in a daze, hugging her coat around herself as if it could somehow protect her from the magnitude of this new reality. But that reality hit hard. She had no idea how Adam would react. She was barely managing to pay for her grandmother's care. What did this mean for the future? And if Adam's wife found out? She couldn't bear to think of that confrontation. Later, at the diner, her co-workers noticed something was off. She moved through the motions of taking orders and delivering plates, but her usual focus was scattered. Around lunchtime, she found a quiet corner to take a breath. Her hands shook as she scrolled through her phone, searching for Adam's number. If they had any chance of working this out, Whatever this was, he needed to know the truth. She summoned her courage and pressed the call button. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. Luna swallowed, her mouth dry, and left a shaky message. Adam, hi. Can you call me back as soon as possible? Something's happened. It's important. Please. For the rest of the day, she waited for a response, the phone perched on a ledge near the cash register. Every time it buzzed, she snatched it up, only to feel her heart sink at seeing spam calls or messages from her coworker about shift swaps. Adam didn't respond. In the afternoon, she checked her phone again. Nothing. With a sense of dread, she tried him one more time, only to be sent straight to voicemail. A wave of nausea curled in her stomach, though she couldn't tell if it was from the pregnancy or from raw nerves. She had to tell him somehow, but where was he? Meanwhile, Adam was in a boardroom downtown, trapped in a high-pressure crisis meeting. A major investor had threatened to pull out if rumors of marital problems continued to swirl in the press. The conversation was tense, with voices raised as each director demanded that Adam fix his personal life immediately. His phone buzzed in his pocket, but he couldn't break away. A glance at the screen showed Luna's name, sending a stab of worry through his chest, but the chairman glared at him pointedly. Ignoring a call in the midst of this meltdown would only feed the board's displeasure. So he let it go to voicemail, forcing himself to keep his attention on the crisis at hand. Hours later, he emerged, exhausted and unsteady. The hallway lights felt glaringly bright as he made his way to a quiet corner and finally checked his messages. His pulse spiked at Luna's anxious tone. Something in her voice told him this wasn't just about the corporate drama or the old contract with her mother. Something major had happened. He quickly called back, but her line rang unanswered. A wave of regret crashed over him. He should have stepped out of the meeting for her call. Stepping outside, he spotted a cluster of reporters near the building entrance, cameras ready to pounce. His friend hurriedly ushered him to a side exit. Once he was free of the building, he tried Luna again. This time, her shaky voice picked up. He heard the faint din of the diner in the background. "Luna," he said, relief flooding him. "I'm so sorry I missed your call. I was stuck in a meeting I couldn't get out of. Are you okay? You sounded upset." She swallowed. Adam, I have to tell you something. It's not the kind of conversation we can have over the phone. Tell me," he urged, voice low. "Please." She paused, hands trembling around the phone. Then in one breath she said, "I'm pregnant." Silence hung on the line, dense and electric. She could hear his shallow breathing, as if his mind was racing through 1,000 different scenarios. Her own throat felt tight. Finally he found his voice. "Where are you?" he asked, a hint of urgency slipping through. "I'm still at the diner. I have to close up tonight, but—" "Stay there," he said. "I'm on my way." The line went quiet for several long seconds. Luna gripped the phone, uncertain whether the call had dropped or if he was simply too stunned to speak. Then came the words in a low, unsteady tone, carrying the weight of a man whose world had just turned on its axis. Adam's stunned silence on the other end of the line followed by a single sentence. "We need to meet. Tonight." Adam pulled up to the diner's parking lot late in the evening, the fluorescent sign flickering against the darkness. Rain-slicked pavement reflected the glow of streetlights, giving the whole scene a restless shimmer. His mind raced with 1,000 anxious thoughts, but one truth cut through them all. Luna was pregnant. A child, his child, was coming into a world already heavy with secrets and tension. He spotted Luna through the glass windows, cleaning a table in the otherwise empty diner. The bell above the door chimed as he entered, and she straightened up, meeting his eyes. He recognized the uncertainty written on her face, the quiet mix of fear and hope. Beyond that, he sensed something else, a resolve she hadn't shown before. Without speaking, he crossed the room and carefully placed a hand on her arm. "Are you okay?" he asked in a low voice, scanning her expression as though searching for cracks in her composure. She nodded, swallowing hard. I think so, she murmured. It's just a lot. They stood there for a moment, the diner's hum filling the silence. He took her hand and led her to the nearest booth. In that small, intimate circle of yellowish light, they sat facing each other, the weight of recent revelations palpable in the air. "Tell me everything," he said gently, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. She explained her suspicions, the morning at the clinic, and the absolute certainty of the test result. Her voice trembled when she spoke of her grandmother's medical bills, her own fragile finances, and the terror of raising a child in the midst of chaos. Adam listened quietly, pain flickering in his eyes at how alone she'd felt through it all. "I'm so sorry," he whispered when she finished. "I never wanted you to bear this alone." Her shoulders sagged with the release of tension. "I know, but everything is so complicated. Your wife, the board, the press. I can't imagine how any of them will take this news." He grimaced, running a hand through his hair. "They won't take it well. But that doesn't matter right now. You and the baby come first." The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard, and a spark of relief lit her features. "I'll figure something out. I just need time to handle the fallout. I won't leave you on your own." She pressed her lips together, feeling a storm of gratitude and fear inside. The diner lights buzzed softly. Outside, a car sped past, headlights briefly illuminating their booth. The moment felt both vulnerable and strangely hopeful. Her eyes dropped to the tabletop. "What if it's too big for us to handle? Your family, your wife, the company, they're huge forces, and I'm just—" She trailed off, hands tightening into fists. He gently pried her fingers open, threading them with his. "You're not just anything. You matter. And if my family or the board try to dismiss you, they'll have to go through me first." She studied his face, noting the determination shining there. "You really mean that?" she said softly, a faint note of wonder in her voice. He exhaled. "I do." But even as he spoke, he could feel the weight of what would happen once this news came to light. He knew his wife would escalate her threats. The board was already circling like sharks, sniffing out any sign of scandal. Yet for the first time in a long while, he had clarity about what he wanted: to protect Luna and their unborn child, no matter the consequences. They spent the next half hour talking in hushed tones about practicalities. Luna confessed she had no idea how to afford prenatal care on top of her grandmother's bills. Adam offered to help with expenses, though he sensed her reluctance to rely on him financially. She'd always valued her independence. In the end, they agreed they'd figure out the details together, one step at a time. Before leaving, he asked to see her grandmother, wanting to reassure the elderly woman she wouldn't be abandoned. They quietly climbed the stairs to the small apartment, and Luna ushered him inside. Her grandmother was dozing in the armchair, a blanket draped across her lap. The cozy lamp in the corner revealed her peaceful face, pallid but calm. Luna approached gently and touched her grandmother's shoulder, stirring her awake. "Adam came by," she said, keeping her tone light. "There's something we need to tell you." The older woman looked up, blinking. "Oh, hello again," she greeted him warmly. "You've been very kind to us." He knelt beside the armchair, his voice hushed. "I care about your granddaughter a lot," he said, glancing at Luna for confirmation. "And there's something important. We found out Luna's expecting." A spark lit the grandmother's eyes, a tremor of surprise that quickly morphed into tenderness. "My goodness," she breathed, placing a trembling hand on Luna's. "I had no idea." "We only just found out," Luna said, tears threatening to well up. "I'm sorry, Grandma. I know it's sudden." Her grandmother's thin fingers squeezed hers. "Don't apologize. This might be the greatest blessing our family's had in a long time." She turned to Adam, a mix of gratitude and uncertainty on her face. "You'll take care of her?" He looked her straight in the eye, voice thick with emotion. "I promise to do everything in my power to keep them both safe." The elderly woman nodded, and in that moment, Luna felt a fragile peace settle in her chest. For just a second, the looming battles with Adam's wife, the board, and the press faded away, replaced by the quiet warmth of home and the humbling reality of new life. But late that night, as Luna and Adam sat in hushed conversation, reality intruded. Adam's phone buzzed, and he glanced down to see multiple missed calls from his wife. A flood of text messages scrolled across his screen, each more frantic than the last. He let out a slow breath, tension returning to his shoulders. "She's not going to make this easy," he said, setting the phone on the coffee table. "I'm sorry." Luna clenched her hands together. "I expected as much, but we'll handle it, right?" He reached over, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Yes," he murmured, though his voice wavered with the knowledge of what lay ahead. "We have to." In the following days, Adam tried in vain to placate the board, skipping out on certain gatherings to secretly meet with Luna or run errands for her grandmother. His wife's anger burned hot. She threatened to reveal every private detail of his life to the tabloids, stirring up outrage among shareholders. For each small step Adam took toward Luna, forces at work demanded he retreat, demanded he uphold the family's spotless reputation. As tensions grew, the corporation's top brass began applying open pressure. Directors cornered Adam in hallways, reminding him of his obligations to keep scandal at bay. His father, who had been silent for months, abruptly sent him cryptic messages urging him to protect the family name. Meanwhile, Luna felt eyes on her wherever she went. A sleek car parked just down the block, a stranger who seemed too interested in her movements. Anxiety weighed on her like a heavy cloak. Despite these pressures, Adam managed to uncover new references to Luna's mother in the corporate archives, gleaning half-buried documents that indicated a serious contractual dispute decades before. None of the official parties wanted to talk, but the evidence proved something had gone awry. A partnership left incomplete, a debt never fully settled. One evening, Adam arrived at Luna's apartment with a handful of printouts. "I found proof your mother was integral to a project launched by my family's firm," he explained. "It looks like they cut corners and never gave her credit or payment." He hesitated, thinking of how damaging this could be if made public. "This might be what you need to fight for what you're owed." Luna took the pages, her eyes flicking over the typed lines. Relief and anger warred inside her. "It's more than I ever had before," she whispered, tapping a date on the page. "But it's still not enough for a legal case. We need more." He lowered himself onto the worn couch, exhaustion etched into his features. "I'll keep looking. I'll confront whoever I have to. This is bigger than just the money. It's about doing what's right." Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the window panes. Luna glanced at the baby photo on the mantel, her own infant face, cradled by a mother she barely remembered. She felt a fierce protectiveness surge inside her, for the child she carried and for the legacy her mother had never seen fulfilled. Night fell fully, wrapping the street in darkness. Knowing the precarious nature of his position, Adam eventually stood to leave. He pressed his lips to Luna's forehead in a gentle goodbye, then moved toward the door. She followed him, apprehension clear in her gaze. "You're sure you can do this?" she asked, voice trembling slightly. "I don't want you to lose everything." He turned back, cupping her face. "You and our baby are worth everything. No matter what happens, I promise I won't walk away." They lingered in the doorway, a moment of closeness against the storm raging around them. At last, he stepped out into the cool night air, giving her one last, longing look. The tension between public duty and private devotion pressed down on them both, but for now, they held onto each other's words like lifelines. His car rumbled to life, headlights cutting through the dimly lit street. Luna stood there, one hand unconsciously resting on her stomach as she watched him drive off, the silhouette of his taillights vanishing into the distance. A swell of emotions rose in her throat: hope, fear, love, and a desperate plea that he would keep his promise. She whispered into the stillness, her voice carrying the weight of the life growing inside her. "Please don't let me down." Adam stood by the windows of the towering office building, his reflection overlapping the city skyline. He could feel the tension crackling in the air like static. In a few minutes he'd enter the boardroom and announce a decision that would change everything. His heart thudded against his ribcage as he imagined the directors' outraged faces, the inevitable questions, the accusations. But he'd made up his mind. He couldn't keep living a lie. A soft knock at the door stirred him from his thoughts. His closest friend in the company, the CFO, poked his head in. "They're all waiting," he said quietly, a trace of concern coloring his voice. "You sure about this?" Adam nodded, steeling himself. "I have no choice." When he walked into the boardroom, every seat was filled. Grim faces, hawk-like eyes watching his every step. The chairman sat at the head of the long table, tapping a pen against a stack of papers. In the hush of the moment, Adam forced himself to stand tall. "Thank you for coming," he began. He cleared his throat, then continued, voice firm. "I'll be filing for divorce." A ripple of disbelief spread around the table. Several board members exchanged looks, their expressions ranging from shock to anger. One of them, older and gray-haired, leaned forward. "Are you aware what kind of scandal this could cause for the company?" "Yes," Adam said, swallowing hard. "But my marriage it's over. It has been for a long time, and I refuse to pretend otherwise." An immediate clamor broke out, raised voices arguing, a few flustered exclamations. The CFO tried to speak up in Adam's defense, but the chairman cut him off with a sharp gesture. "We cannot afford the negative press, Adam," he said tersely. "Your wife has deep connections, philanthropic ties, and we all know how the media loves a juicy story. Have you considered the damage this will do to public trust in our leadership?" Adam's jaw clenched. "I've considered it all, but I'm not going to live in a sham marriage just to keep up appearances." One of the directors muttered something about shareholders. Another one demanded to know if rumors of his affair were true. Adam set his shoulders. "There's no affair," he said, voice trembling with suppressed frustration. "Yes, I've gotten close to someone, but only because my marriage was done long before she ever came into my life. We've been separated in all but name." The door suddenly burst open, and his wife strode in, flanked by her own legal counsel. Her face was set in furious lines, and she held a folder of documents. Adam's stomach lurched. He'd hoped to handle things privately, but it seemed she had other plans. "I can't believe you'd do this," she said, her tone carrying equal parts outrage and triumph. "You want a divorce? Fine. But I'm not leaving quietly." She dropped the folder onto the table. "I'm demanding a settlement that reflects everything I've invested in this marriage. And if I don't get it, I'm happy to expose every sordid detail of your behavior to the press." Adam could almost feel the board collectively holding its breath, like a pack of startled animals. He turned to his wife, forcing calm into his voice. "We can talk about this privately." She scoffed. "Why? So you can hush it up like the rest of your indiscretions?" "No, I think we'll settle this out in the open. After all, you're the one who said you're done pretending." The chairman tried to restore order, but the damage was done. Within minutes, half the board was talking over each other, some demanding that Adam step aside, others cautioning that the scandal would only worsen if they conceded to the wife's demands. She stood in the midst of it all, arms folded, looking more victorious than distraught. Adam felt a wave of nausea. He could imagine the headlines already. The wealthy CEO in a messy public split, rumors swirling about a pregnant mistress, and corporate skeletons rattling in the closet. Trying to form words, he finally said, "I'm sorry this is happening, but the marriage is broken, and I won't keep it up any longer." With that, He stalked out, ignoring the calls behind him. Within hours, news of his announcement swept through social media and gossip sites. A vicious rumor mill churned out every possible story, some claiming he'd left his wife penniless, others painting Luna as a gold digger who'd latched onto a lonely billionaire. Adam tried to shield Luna from the worst of it, but it was impossible to contain. Whenever he checked his phone, more messages pinged in, each more alarmist than the last. At the diner, a few reporters even dared to show up during lunchtime, snapping pictures of the sign and pestering staff about the Waitress. Luna hid in the back, trembling, as the manager ushered the journalists away. But she knew she couldn't avoid them forever. Her co-workers whispered among themselves, some giving her pitying looks, others appearing uncomfortable, as though she were radioactive. That evening, Luna returned home to find her grandmother in front of the television, tears welling in the older woman's eyes. A sensational news program was running a segment on Adam's sudden divorce filing, with a photo of Luna blurred in the background. The headline across the screen read, "CEO's secret lover cashing in?" The angle was brutal, painting Luna as a cunning opportunist who'd seduced a powerful man for money. Luna's grandmother quickly turned off the TV. "They're only telling lies to sell a story," she said, voice quavering. "Don't let it get to you." But Luna felt her heart sink. The entire country might believe she was scheming. Worst of all, it was overshadowing everything else: her mother's past, the rightful debt owed, the baby she was trying to protect from all this chaos. After a quick meal, she retreated to her room, phone in hand. Adam had been messaging her apologies, promising he'd fix things, that he'd make an official statement condemning the gossip. She scrolled through his words, wanting so badly to trust him despite how huge the obstacles seemed. Elsewhere, Adam was cornered by the CFO and a few more sympathetic board members in a quiet corridor of the headquarters. Their eyes flickered with worry. "We're on your side," one said, "but the rest of them are panicking. They're afraid the stock will plummet if this scandal doesn't die down." Adam pressed a hand to the bridge of his nose. "I'm aware," he muttered, "but I can't just pretend. My wife's demands are outrageous. I won't buy her silence, and I won't abandon Luna." They all looked at him grimly. The CFO cleared his throat. "Then you need a plan, something that stabilizes the company while you handle your personal affairs. Right now, we're close to losing major investors." Tension coiled in Adam's gut. He thought of the child Luna carried, the promise he made to protect them both. "I'll figure it out," he whispered. "Give me time." But time was a commodity in short supply. Over the next few days, tabloids printed lurid stories, grainy photos of Luna, allegations about her searching for a payday. Online forums buzzed with speculation, some cruel, some bizarrely sympathetic. Luna tried to stay out of the public eye, but she had no choice but to work. Tips were essential for paying rent and buying groceries. Whenever a customer recognized her, she felt their stares burrow into her back like knives. Late one night, she got a call from Adam. His voice was ragged with frustration and defeat. "I might have to step down," he admitted. "The board's threatening a vote of no confidence if I don't settle things." Her heart ached. She pictured him alone in some dimly lit office, weighed down by the demands of a legacy he never truly wanted. "I'm sorry," she whispered, wishing there was more she could do. "It's not your fault," he reassured her. "It's mine for living in a lie for so long." He took a shaky breath. I need to speak to my father. He's been ignoring me, but maybe he can talk sense into the board, or at least broker some kind of deal." Little did he know that call was coming sooner than expected. The very next evening, as he prepared to leave his apartment, his phone rang. The contact name made his stomach drop. His father, a man who rarely deigned to handle anything personally. Adam lifted it to his ear, expecting a lecture. Instead, the older man's voice was taut and direct. "Come to the estate immediately," he said. "We need to end this once and for all." Adam's car rumbled through the massive wrought-iron gates of his father's estate late in the afternoon. The sprawling grounds stretched on either side of the winding driveway, lined with neatly trimmed hedges and ancient oak trees draped in the remnants of autumn. He glanced at Luna in the passenger seat. She looked as anxious as he felt, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Neither of them had spoken much since they'd left the city. This visit felt like the threshold of something monumental and irreversible. Ahead, the house stood like a stone sentinel. Tall columns, grand windows, an imposing facade that hinted at old money and an unyielding sense of power. Adam's gut twisted at the memories stirred by the sight. His childhood spent running down these halls, the tense dinners where his father's approval seemed like the rarest prize. But he'd never brought anyone here under such circumstances. This time, it wasn't just about him. It was about Luna, the baby they were expecting, and the hidden truths of her mother's past. The car crunched to a stop on the gravel courtyard. A servant approached to open the door, but Adam waved him off, stepping out to help Luna instead. She tilted her head back to take in the imposing facade, her breath catching. She'd never seen wealth on this scale. Still, her chin rose in quiet determination as she slipped her arm through Adam's. Inside, a grand foyer opened up, marble floors gleaming beneath a chandelier. The walls were lined with portraits of Adam's ancestors, their faces almost scornful, as if they sensed an outsider in their midst. A discreetly dressed housekeeper approached and gestured for them to follow her. They stepped through archways and corridors until they arrived at the library, a cavernous room stacked floor to ceiling with leather-bound books, tall windows draped in heavy velvet curtains. Adam's father stood by one of the windows, hands clasped behind his back. He was a distinguished figure, silver hair neatly combed, wearing a tailored suit that spoke of old-world elegance. Though his posture was rigid, the look he gave Adam carried more gravity than anger. Even so, tension crackled in the air. "Father!" Adam greeted, nodding stiffly. His father's gaze flicked to Luna. "You've brought her here," he observed, voice neither welcoming nor hostile, more like he was stating a fact. Adam tightened his grip on Luna's hand. "Yes," he said firmly. "We're in this together." The older man exhaled, turning slightly to face them. "There's no use denying that your relationship has caused quite a stir." His eyes moved to Luna. "My board members and I are troubled by the negative press, but that's only part of the issue. Your mother's name has surfaced in old corporate records, Miss Luna," she offered, her voice steady. "Yes, Luna." He paused as though tasting the sound of her name. "I've seen the documents Adam managed to uncover. If your mother was owed something, I believe we can come to some arrangement." Adam cleared his throat. "She's not here to make a deal without knowing the whole truth. We want to see the documents, everything. We're tired of half-answers." A flicker of annoyance tightened his father's features, but he nodded. "Very well. Let's go to the study." They followed him through another hallway into a smaller room with a long mahogany desk and files neatly arranged. A single lamp glowed, casting shadows on the walls. Luna's heart pounded as Adam's father opened a locked cabinet and withdrew a folder thick with faded pages. He laid them on the desk, flipping through with practiced efficiency. "These were the agreements drawn up decades ago," he explained. "Your mother's name is referenced here and here. She was part of a crucial project for our company, though it was never fully documented in the final records." Luna's eyes scanned the typewritten lines, absorbing details she'd only guessed at. Her mother's role in designing or financing some aspect of a new product, references to a contract that suddenly ended. She recognized the name of an investor who'd once been kind to her family when she was a child. For a moment, the room seemed to spin, proof that her mother had truly been an essential part of the company's success, only to be cast aside. She drew in a shaky breath. "This means the corporation owes my family compensation." Adam's father closed the folder. "Technically, the contract is incomplete, but yes, there's an implication of unpaid dues. However, a legal claim would be messy. The press would devour it, especially with all the attention on you and Adam right now. We'd prefer to handle things quietly. Adam stepped forward, eyes flashing. And I suppose you want her to sign something that silences her about the baby and the contract. Is that it? His father gave him a measuring look. I'm trying to protect this family and the company. If Luna chooses to speak publicly, the scandal could deepen. That won't help anyone. Before Adam could respond, footsteps echoed in the corridor. The door swung open, and his wife entered, flanked by 2 lawyers. Her posture was rigid with cold triumph, a venomous smile curving her lips. "Well, isn't this cozy?" she declared, taking in Adam, Luna, and the older man in a single scathing glance. Adam's father glowered. "I didn't invite you here, and I certainly didn't ask you to bring attorneys." She shrugged with feigned innocence. "I have a right to protect my own interests. Adam is still my husband on paper, and if he's here cutting deals, I deserve to know." She turned sharply to Luna, eyes blazing with animosity. "You think you can barge in and demand rights? My attorneys are prepared to contest any claims you might have, unless, of course, you want to keep this private. Then there's a price to pay." Luna's face burned under the weight of that hostile gaze, but Adam's voice cut in, firm. "No, we won't be blackmailed," he said, stepping closer to Luna. "Whatever arrangement is made, it'll be fair and transparent. If you don't like it, that's your problem." Adam's wife scoffed. "You're a fool if you think the board won't push you out the minute they see the costs of these so-called reparations. They only tolerated your escapades to a point. Now you're threatening them with a lawsuit from your mistress and a child out of wedlock?" She shook her head in mocking pity. "They'll cast you aside without a second thought." Adam bristled. "Luna is not my mistress, and that's my child. You should stop embarrassing yourself with these accusations. We both know this marriage was over long before Luna came into my life." The tension in the room thickened. One of the lawyers stepped forward, brandishing a folder that looked suspiciously like the one Adam's father had just shown. "We have enough evidence here to paint a very different picture to the media," the lawyer said, addressing Luna. "We can argue you targeted Adam for financial gain, exploiting an old contract to squeeze money out of the corporation." A wave of rage and humiliation coursed through Luna. She opened her mouth to retort, but Adam reached for her hand. She felt his touch, warm and steady, reminding her she wasn't alone. "Stop!" Adam demanded, voice taut. "I'm done listening to threats. If you want a spectacle, we can take it to court, but it won't end well for anyone here." Adam's father rubbed his temples, clearly exasperated. "Enough, all of you." He glanced at his wife's lawyers with a disdainful curl of his lip, then turned to Adam. "Son, is there no way we can resolve this behind closed doors? You're risking the entire legacy." Adam locked eyes with him. "That legacy doesn't matter if it's built on lies. Luna's mother was cheated. Now Luna's being attacked. I can't stand by and let that happen." A momentary silence followed, broken by the sound of hurried footsteps in the corridor. The butler appeared, looking unsettled. "Sir, there's a matter at the main entrance. Reporters are gathering, demanding a statement." His father's face darkened. "How did they—" He shot Adam's wife a suspicious glare. She smirked, lifting her chin. "You're not the only one who can leak information. If this meeting's going to happen, why not let the world see what's really going on?" Luna's stomach twisted. The last thing she wanted was a media circus, especially here. But it seemed the wife had orchestrated this as a final humiliating ploy, to drag them all into a public confrontation. Outside, voices grew louder. Faint camera flashes lit up the windows like bursts of lightning. Adam's father cursed under his breath. "This is getting out of hand. Someone call security." The wife's attorneys exchanged glances, quietly satisfied at the chaos they'd unleashed. In the midst of the uproar, Luna felt her composure slip. This was more scrutiny than she'd ever imagined. The child inside her didn't deserve to be born into such a mess. Adam sensed her distress. He slid an arm around her shoulders, blocking the cameras that were now peeking in through the open doors. His father tried to restore order, but the chaos spilled into the hallway, staff frantically trying to corral the journalists. A tall figure in a business suit marched forward, the CFO who'd once been Adam's ally. His expression was grim, and he refused to meet Adam's eyes. "I'm sorry," the man muttered, "but the board's lost confidence. They're calling for an emergency vote on your position if you can't calm this scandal." Adam's father looked weary, standing by in a silent form of disappointment. The wife's smirk deepened, and her lawyers circled like vultures. For a moment it seemed everyone in that grand hallway was against Adam and Luna, pressing in with threats, demands, and betrayal. Luna felt tears threaten, the flash of cameras in her peripheral vision making her dizzy. Adam took a step forward, squaring his shoulders. "You all want me to choose," he said, voice cutting through the din. "You want me to protect the family name, the corporate image, and keep pretending I'm not in love with someone else, someone carrying my child." The crowd stilled, eyes locked on Adam. Luna blinked, heart pounding at his raw declaration. She'd known he cared deeply, but hearing him say it there, in front of everyone, felt like standing on the edge of a cliff and choosing to jump. A hush fell over the scene. Adam's father looked as if he wanted to intervene but couldn't find the words. The CFO waited, uncertain, and the paparazzi outside craned their cameras. Adam's wife glowered, her expression a storm of disbelief. Adam took Luna's hand, lacing his fingers with hers. Then he lifted his gaze, addressing the entire gathering, his father, the board, the press beyond the door, and anyone else who would dare question him. Adam stands in the grand hall, torn between family loyalty, corporate obligations, and his resolve to protect Luna. He finally says, "I choose Luna," setting the stage for a decisive conclusion. Adam's declaration reverberated through the grand hall, echoed by the hush of onlookers. For a moment, no one moved. A light breeze drifted in from the open doors, stirring the opulent drapes. Cameras flashed, capturing the stunned expressions of board members, lawyers, and staff alike. Luna stood at his side, breath caught in her throat, pulse hammering. She had never felt more vulnerable, yet also somehow more certain of her path. His wife broke the silence first. "You choose her?" she repeated, voice dripping with disbelief and fury. Her eyes darted from Adam to Luna, hands clenched at her sides. "After everything we built, you'd just throw it all away for—" "Enough," Adam cut in, his tone subdued but resolute. "We didn't build anything real. You know that. It was all for show. I'm done letting fear and appearances dictate my life." She opened her mouth to argue, but Adam's father stepped forward, lifting a hand to quiet the room. "Everyone, please," he said, voice taut from exertion. "We can't continue this spectacle with reporters at the door." He glanced at the CFO, who nodded and signaled security to corral the press outside. Then, in a lower voice, he addressed the small gathering still in the hallway. "Let's handle this internally. Follow me." They moved into a private salon off the main corridor, away from prying cameras. The room was decorated with gilded furniture and heavy curtains that glowed with subdued light. Adam guided Luna to a seat on a brocade sofa, keeping one hand in hers. His wife stood off to the side, flanked by her lawyers, while Adam's father remained at the center like a judge presiding over a fraught trial. Clearing his throat, the older man spoke, eyes shifting from his son to the wife and back again. "The public scandal is out of control. Whether we like it or not, the press won't stop until they have their story. Adam, if you intend to finalize your divorce, the board demands a swift resolution. And if Miss Luna's mother was truly wronged, we owe her family a debt." One of the wife's lawyers scoffed. "She has no legitimate proof, just scraps of old paperwork." Luna's temper flared. "Scraps that show my mother contributed to the company's early success. Your files confirm it." Adam's father nodded slowly. "I've seen enough to believe it's real. Our reputation hinges on integrity, or what's left of it. We'll compensate Miss Luna as is fitting and rectify the past." He looked pointedly at the lawyers. "I expect your full cooperation to keep this dignified." The wife let out a mirthless laugh, stepping forward. "Oh, you'd love to sweep it under the rug. Adam thinks he can rid himself of this marriage, cover up his indiscretions, and come out looking noble. Well, I have demands of my own." She held up a sheaf of papers. "I won't sign a divorce unless I receive a settlement that reflects all I've invested in the family name." Adam's shoulders tensed, but his voice remained calm. "If that's what it takes, fine. I'll sacrifice a share of my assets to end this farce of a marriage, but you will not drag Luna or our child through your vendetta." Their gazes locked in a silent battle of wills. After a long pause, the wife tossed the papers onto a polished table. "I want an ironclad agreement. I won't be humiliated any further." Adam inhaled, then turned to his father, who looked wearier than ever. "I'll pay whatever penalty, but I'm standing by Luna, and I want it known publicly that her mother's contributions are recognized and settled, with an official apology from the company." A ripple of murmurs went through the small crowd. The CFO exchanged looks with a couple of other executives who had slipped in. They could almost see the fiasco of headlines they'd have to navigate, but Adam's father appeared to sense there was no alternative. "So be it," he said, his voice tinged with resignation. That night, legal teams worked into the early hours drafting documents. Luna, exhausted and overwhelmed, leaned against Adam in the salon while final details were hammered out in hushed conversations. She thought of her grandmother, waiting anxiously at home, and ached to call her, to share that there was finally a light at the end of this tumultuous tunnel. Adam stayed by her side, occasionally signing something, sometimes pausing to whisper encouraging words. The moment felt surreal, like standing in a storm's eye, calm at the center, but chaos all around. When the final clauses were set, Adam's wife signed her name with a flourish, then handed the pen to him. "I hope you're ready," she said, a strange mix of bitterness and relief in her eyes, "because the world will judge you for this." He scrawled his signature. "I'm done worrying about what the world thinks," he replied quietly. After a tense handshake between lawyers, the wife swept out, leaving behind an uneasy silence. Adam's father lingered to place a formal apology letter in Luna's hands, an acknowledgement of her mother's role and a promise of restitution. The signature at the bottom was his own, along with the company seal. "I hope this helps," he told her, more gently than he had before. "We can't change the past, but maybe we can start making things right." Luna held the letter like a lifeline, tears burning at the corners of her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. It means a lot to my family." The older man's face softened, as if a heavy burden had lifted. "Adam," he said, turning to his son, "you understand the board may still pressure you to step down. The settlement with your wife and the public apology will put us in a vulnerable position. Investors might not like it." Adam nodded. "If they want me out, I'll go. I only stayed as CEO this long out of obligation. Now I have more important things to focus on." He glanced at Luna with a quiet smile. "We'll figure it out." The next few weeks felt like a whirlwind. Headlines blared with news of the divorce settlement, accompanied by official statements confirming that a portion of the corporation's wealth would be used to correct past failings. Some tabloids feasted on rumors and sensational stories, but slowly, a counter-narrative emerged. Adam's willingness to own up to the company's mistakes, to break away from a hollow marriage, and to honor his commitment to a woman from outside his rarefied world. Luna spent her free hours helping her grandmother, finally able to schedule better medical treatments thanks to the influx of money the company had owed her mother all along. The apology letter gave them a sense of closure, though the emotional scars lingered. Adam dropped by their apartment regularly, sometimes bringing groceries, sometimes just offering a listening ear. Each visit felt like a small victory over the turmoil they'd been through. Meanwhile, Adam fought to stabilize the corporation. A faction of the board insisted on his resignation, but others respected the integrity he'd shown. In the end, a compromise was reached. He relinquished part of his power and stepped back from day-to-day operations. It was a bittersweet moment for him, surrendering a title he'd once believed defined him. Yet with Luna by his side, he discovered a new sense of purpose, no longer chained to endless demands and empty obligations. Months slipped by, and little by little the gossip subsided. A fresh chapter began to take shape, one in which Adam was free to walk into Doris's diner without glances of scorn or pity. People recognized him, sure, but many now saw a man who had chosen a different path, one led by truth rather than pretense. On a mild spring morning, the diner reopened with a new coat of paint, fresh signage, and an energized staff. Luna had saved enough to invest in a few improvements, and Adam contributed discreetly, wanting the place to thrive. When customers walked in, they saw brighter walls, polished counters, and a chalkboard menu listing daily specials. There was an air of hope and renewal in every corner. On that opening day, Luna's grandmother sat at a window booth, a soft smile on her face. She watched as neighbors, old and new, filtered in and out, sampling pies and sipping coffee. Adam bustled around in rolled-up sleeves, helping the staff carry supplies, looking nothing like the aloof CEO of months past. If anyone had asked, they might have guessed he was just a friendly local lending a hand. Luna was behind the counter, talking to a pair of customers who'd become regulars when she felt a gentle nudge from one of the servers. Turning around, she found Adam with a small bouquet of flowers, a playful grin lighting his face. She laughed and accepted them, leaning in for a brief kiss that earned them a round of applause from a nearby table. "You're definitely hired," she teased, poking fun at his impromptu help with the boxes and coffee refills. He raised an eyebrow, smirking. "Good, I'll take the night shift." Across the diner, her grandmother caught their banter and winked, the crinkles at the corners of her eyes betraying quiet joy. This was a world away from the gloom of old medical bills and constant worry. Now there was light, laughter, and the promise of family expanding in love rather than fear. As the diner bustled with friendly chatter, Luna placed a hand on her belly, and Adam smiled at her with genuine warmth. Outside, the camera pans to show the sign glowing in the twilight, a symbol of a fresh start built on honesty, love, and the courage to face the past. If you enjoyed this story, don't miss the next one. Just click on the screen.